So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over representing data with a focus of drawing bar charts. Now, a bar chart is a statistical chart used to represent either discrete or categorical data. Now, you may be asking, what is discrete and what is categorical data? Well, discrete data is basically numerical data that can only be certain numbers. So in other words, it's numbers that can only be particular numbers. Now, it's not a case of just looking at whole numbers. They can be decimal numbers, but they can only be certain decimal numbers. So an example of discrete data is going to be number of people, shoe size. So with shoe size, you can get half sizes, but you can't get size 8.3, and also number of goals, etc. Now, categorical data, that's data represented by words. So if you were doing a data collection on colour of hair or colour of socks, a day in which things were popular and things that weren't, either the month, people, gender, etc. Now, when data is continuous, we would tend to use a histogram instead, which is covered in another video, which I'll include a link in the description. Now, continuous data is basically data that can be any number. Oh, let's just correct that. That can be any number within a range. So an example of that would be height, weight, distance. So generally length, where it can be absolutely any number depending on the instrument that you're using, but any number within a given range. Now, when drawing a bar chart, you must abide by the following properties to gain full marks when constructing a bar chart. Now, the first thing is that the frequency always goes along the vertical axis, or the y-axis as you could call it. And the data or the categories always goes along the horizontal axes. Now, the second thing is that the bars that you draw must be equal width. You must also have gaps between the bars. The gaps must be equal distance apart, and that the frequency scale must be consistent. In other words, that it starts at 0 and it goes up by the same amount. And you want to make sure that the distance there is going to be the same. So for example, what you don't want to do is delete the axes, but what you don't want to do is to have a scale that looks something like this. Just bear with me where that corrects that up. So what I mean by that, starting with 0, you've got 2 here, then you've got 4 over there, 6 over here, 7 over there. So again, there's no equal, the scale is not consistent in terms of frequency. It needs to be going up by equal steps and by equal numbers. Now on the screen, what you can see are two good examples of a correctly drawn bar chart. So we're looking at question 1, or the bar chart 1 I should say. We've got frequency going up our vertical axes, and we've got the categories going across our horizontal axes. You can see here that the scale is going up by the same amount each time we've grown up a square. So we're going up in ones. The bars are all equal width, so a width of 2, and you can choose what width you want to do your bars as long as it's the same for all the categories. And as you can also see is that we've got an equal gap between each of the bars, and again, there's no restriction on what the gap needs to be. Just make sure it fits on your sheet of paper or the grid that you've been given. So here they've got a gap of 1. Now moving on to example 2. So here you can see that the vertical axis, the frequency, is going up in 8s this time. So you don't always have to go up in 1s. Obviously, if you do go up in 1s, your graph's going to could be particularly big. So you want to make sure that you're using the correct scale to fit the grid that you're, or piece of paper that you're working with. And again, each of the bars appear to be equal widths. We've got equal gaps between each of the bars. And another thing that's important that I forgot to mention is that the axes are labeled. And again, you want to make sure that your labeling is on point as well, as some questions now are asking you to do that. So now let's have a look at some past exam questions. Now, if you wanted a copy of these questions, all you need to do is just simply click on the link in the description. So you can either have attempts at the questions and then come back to the video to see whether you're correct and whether you've got full marks for it, or you can have a go at the questions as we go through and as you watch the video. So looking at question 1, it says the table shows what 20 students do for lunch. We've got sandwiches, school dinners, or they go home. And the question is asking us to draw a bar chart to show the information. Now, as you can see, we've got our grid already drawn, so we can use this. And the highest frequency is 8. So whatever scale I've got to go to, I've got to make sure that I'm going all the way up to 8. Now I'm going to keep it simple. Again, we start from 0, and I'm going to go up in 1. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I always like to go one extra. And again, you always want to make sure that you're labeling. So we've got frequency. And what we've got here is we've got lunchtime, so lunch activity. So then, as we've only got 3 things we need to measure, I need to draw 3 bars. So I'm going to opt for having the bar widths of being 2 squares across with a gap of 1. So now all I need to do is, using a ruler, and you need to make sure that you are being neat with this, is I now need to draw my bars. So let me just set this up first, and let's move this one across. Oh, that's almost perfect. So here we've got to make this bar go up to 7. Then if I draw another one for school dinner, and that's going up to 5. Again, want to try and be as neat as possible. And the last one is 8. And that's going up there. And then all that's left for me to then do is just label. Now you could either have a key, or you can just write really small. So I could write sandwiches if it fits, which you can just about see. I don't think you can, but it is what it is. So school dinners, and we've got go home. Now alternately, what you could do is just label them, let's say A, B and C, and then just label here A is sandwiches, B is school dinners, and C is go home. And again, that should be absolutely fine for the 4 marks, but again, you need to make sure that your scale is correct, so that'll be worth 1 mark. The bars are correct, which is another mark. The gaps are correct, which is another mark. And your labeling is another mark there. So that's where the 4 marks will be awarded. Now moving on to question 2, it says, very similar question. The table shows information about birds in a garden. And we've got robin, sparrow, wren and lark. And the question is asking us to draw a bar chart. So I've kind of already drawn the bars already, and you can see that they're all equal widths of 1 square up. So all that's left for me to do is do the scale. So we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, don't think I could have got up any further, so I'm just going to label this as frequency, and then we've got types of bird, and all that's left for me to do is then label the bars. Either you can use a key like you would with a bar chart, so I've got robin, I've got sparrow, and I've got wren, and I've got a lark. And again, don't need to use the full words, just initials, just something that links the bar to what it represents, and that'll be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 3, it says table shows 25 students, how 25 students travel to school, draw a bar chart. So again, I've kind of just in advance drawn the bars already. So all that's left for me to do is label. So we've got walk, we've got bus, and we've got car and taxi. And again, my bars are 2 bars or 2 squares across this time with a gap of 1 square. And again, all that's left for me to do is then just label. So here I've got 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and 0. And again, all I've got to do then is just label. So frequency, and here we've got method or type of travel. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine for the full marks. Moving on to question 4, it says a band played 20 concerts in 5 countries, 5 continents. Draw a fully labelled bar chart to show the information. So for this, what we need to do is first of all complete the frequency column. So we've got 1, 1, 10, 3 and 5. And you just want to double make sure that that all adds up to 20, which it does. So then it's a case of doing is then just drawing and completing our bar chart following those rules. So again, we're going up in 1s, so we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got frequency, and then we've got continent. And all that's left for me to do is then label the bars. So again, either you could draw a key. So we've got Africa, we've got Asia, we've got Europe, we've got North America, and South America. And again, all bars are equal widths, equal gaps between each bar. So again, 4 marks. Now the next question, sometimes you get a question that's attached to it, then says what fraction of the 20 concerts were in South America? Give your answer in its simplest form. So South America, looking back, was 5, so it's 5 out of 20. And we then need to simplify this fraction, so that's going to be 1/4. Moving on to question 5, it says 20 students give information about how they travel to school. Half the students travel by bus, 7 travel by car, and twice as many students travel by train as walk. Show the information in the bar chart. So if we've got bus, we've got car, we've got train, and we've got walk. Now looking at the information, we know that the total adds up to 20. So all of these numbers need to add up to 20. And looking at the information that we've got half the students travel by bus, so half of 20 is 10. 7 travel by car, and it says twice as many students travel by train as walk. So for every 2, we've got 1 that walks. And again, so here we've got these 2 numbers add up to 3. So then the train is going to be 2 and the walk is going to be 1. So then completing our bar chart, you should have something that looks like this. And again, making sure that the bars are equal widths and you've got an equal gap between each bar. Moving on to question 6, it says the table shows information about the main holiday of 200 students in 2011. It says complete the table. So all of these numbers here will add up to the total. So then to work out the female of the missing number, all I've got to do here is do 100 minus 70 minus 24, which gives me an answer of 6. It then says the bar chart shows information for the males, which is there. And the question is then asking me to draw a bar chart for the females, in which you should end up with something that looks like this. So this bar should go up to 70, this bar should go up to 24, and this bar should go up to 6. And again, try making sure that you've got equal gaps between the bars and the bars are all equal widths. It then says their travel firm sells holidays to students in 2012. Do you think they will sell more holidays abroad or holidays in the UK? Tick a box and it says give a reason. So let's have a look at this information here. So looking at the females, the most popular one was holiday abroad. For the males, it was holiday abroad. So again, what we're going to do here is probably going to tick holidays abroad, give a reason, because more males and females chose to holiday abroad in 2011. So you'd assume that the same thing happened last year as happened this time. Moving on to the part D, it says the information about males and females could also be drawn on a dual bar chart. Why might this be a good idea? Well, basically the reason why it's a good idea is because you are using the same type of data. So the column have the same headings for each gender. Now what I mean by that is if I look at the bar chart for males, we've got holiday abroad, holiday in UK, no holiday, and we've got the same labels for the females of holiday abroad, holiday in UK, and no holiday. Now moving on to question 7, it says the table shows the number of different types of sandwiches sold in a cafe in one morning. Lily uses this information to draw a bar chart, and the question is asking us to write down 2 mistakes that she has made. So if I just zoom out just so we can see the table and the space of that. So we're going to go for 2 mistakes. Now there's quite a few mistakes that Lily's made here. So the first one that I notice is that the scale is not equal. So one particular thing you could spot is that the scale is not equal. Another mistake is that the graph, the frequency does not start at 0. So that's another one. Another one is that she has swapped the ham and tuna, or the order of this is wrong. So the first column, which is 7, should be not cheese, it should be ham. The second one should be cheese, so that should be 10. And then in terms of the heights of the bars, I do believe they seem correct, which they are. So again, ham and cheese is the wrong way round, or mixed up, you should say, or mixed up. And I do believe that's it. You could maybe stretch at saying the type of sandwich has not been labelled. Maybe that would be allowed. You may need to check the mark scheme to see if any other criticisms you've found is not correct. Also, I can see that we've got no gaps between the bars. So Lily has proper messed up this question. So again, any of those 2 particular statements will be absolutely fine to get the 2 marks for this particular question. Moving on to question 8, it says that a bar chart is drawn to show the number of people visiting a cinema in 1 month. And we've got our statement here. And again, very similar question to the previous one. We want to state 1 criticism of the bar chart. And again, one thing you should be able to spot is that the scale is incorrect. It's going up in 500s, then all of a sudden it goes up by 100. So here you want to say that the scale is incorrect, because the bars are equal widths and the gap between each bar is fine. The height of the bars is fine. It's just that scale that's the error. Then moving on to our last question, it says, on a journey, Laura sees 30 vehicles. Each vehicle is a car, a van or a lorry. She draws this bar chart, and again we're asking for name 2 criticisms. So one criticism I can see straight away is that you've got uneven gaps between the bars. And let's just check the vertical scale, the frequency scale. So we've got going up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. That seems to be correct. And the widths of the bar appear to me to be correct. Let's just have a look, see if we've got this here, and let's see if they all add up to 30. So we've got 14, 4, and we've got 10. So 14 plus 4 plus 10 gives me an answer of 28. Does it say? And as you can see, we're supposed to have 30 vehicles. So the frequency, the total frequency, does not add up to 30. And there we go. So we've got 2 vehicles that she seems to have missed. Maybe she blinked. And there we go.